ESPN 94.1 FM and AM 930 present The Drive.
It is Thursday, August 21st. Your drive begins now on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. I'm your host, Paul Swann. Thanks for being a part of today's show. We're going to get you set with our text line this hour. It is open 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Now, if you don't have a cell phone, you can always join the program. If you're on your web browser right now, head on over to X. I'm at Paul Swann. I read those comments as well. So we've got a way for you to be a part of the show. I'm excited today. We've got Juli Fulks coming up here in the next few minutes. Exciting news. Marshall women going to play host to Kentucky November 15th at the Cam Henderson Center. So that's a big deal. Kentucky hasn't been to the Cam since the 2004-05 season. So I'm feeling like Jan the Cam is coming back, right? We have to ask her about that. So Coach is going to join us in a few minutes. We'll talk about that with her, and that's a pretty big deal. Hopefully the men can pull off something like that in the future as well. But until we talk to Coach, we'll get you caught up on everything that happened. We start with women's soccer. Got the win over Glenville State, 6-0. First win for Gerald Harrison as the athletic director of Marshall University. Marshall's now 2-0. You had 6 goals from 6 different players, so very balanced. Now, of course, it is Glenville State. And I'm not trying to disparage Glenville State, but Marshall should score 6 on Glenville State. And so that made me happy to at least see Marshall taking care of business against an opponent that it should take care of business against. Marshall, I believe, outshot them 27-1. That is a dominant performance. And if you're Emma Duran, you're feeling pretty good because you got – I don't want to say an off night of work there, but you didn't have much to do. Clean sheet for the Thundering Herd. Defense has been solid for soccer so far. And speaking of soccer, 5 Marshall men's soccer players have been named to the Top Drawer Soccer preseason Top 100 list. Of course, Marshall number 2 in the country right now, and the Herd's going to kick off the regular season with the home opener against George Mason on Friday, and then taking on Virginia Tech as well. So it's going to be a tough start for the Thundering Herd. The 5 players that were named: Takahiro Fujita was number 45. Theo Goddard was 24th. Rai Pinto was 89. Ryan Holmes was 92nd. And Momo Depot was 34th. So a lot of praise for Marshall soccer at this point, number 2 in the country. And, of course, you got to hang on to that and you got to prove it. Marshall number 2 by default, being the runner-up in the College Cup Championship. So off to a good start, hopefully, for the Thundering Herd. And, of course, a story that happened yesterday, we didn't get a chance really to talk about it, and I'm interested in see what the ramifications are going to be. A federal judge on Wednesday allowed 4 football players to compete at West Virginia this season. This is another case that goes against the NCAA's eligibility rules. U.S. District Judge John Preston Bailey issued a preliminary injunction in a lawsuit filed by defensive lineman Jamori Robinson, running back Ty Edwards, safety Justin Harrington, and wide receiver Jeff Weimer. They were previously denied appeals to play. They challenged the NCAA rule that sets a 5-year limit for players to compete over 4 seasons. And I think this is going to have a transformative change. 5 to get 4. That's usually been the rule, 5 to get 4. We're almost turning college football, and to be fair, it's already there. We're turning college football into a lower level pro system just about. We're getting rid of eligibility rules, and if students are not having to worry about eligibility rules, you can just come and play, right? We're going to get to the point where the student portion of this might not be a factor. And then the other big item today, I want to really get into this later. And I mentioned college athletics becoming more of a pro style. Well, the one thing I do like about professional sports is you get a good idea of what your team's going to look like, what the players are going to be doing on game day? Are they going to be ineligible? Are they questionable? What's the availability of those players? And so the Sun Belt and other leagues are going to be doing this as well, but the Sun Belt is going to issue availability reports, and this will be for all conference football games. And there's also going to be a review process because, after all, don't put it above anyone to kind of feign an injury, and that's going to be a big concern. And, of course, a lot of this has to do, I'm sure, with name, image, likeness, a lot of revenue, a lot of money going to be changing hands here and going into the hands of the student athletes. And so the Sun Belt releases its statement today, says that these policies are intended to promote and preserve the integrity of competition, with the availability reports also protecting student athletes and institutional staff from outside entities seeking to obtain inside information about availability. So basically, we're becoming more transparent, and I'm for that. I'm absolutely for that if it's consistent across the board. Now, I've had this conversation in years past. I'd have this intellectual debate with a former professor of mine at Marshall University. And he would look at me and go, why would you release an injury report? Why would you tell the other team which players are hurt and where? So they'll target those players. And we'd have this back and forth. But this is going to be available every Wednesday or 3 days prior to each conference game. So if the league plays on Saturday or teams are playing on Saturday, you're going to get that injury report 3 days. So that would be Wednesday. Also, there's going to be a game day update. That would be at 10:30 a.m. on game day. So we're going to know a lot sooner and a lot closer to game time which players are going to be available and what their status may be. The feigning injuries portion is going to be a big deal as well. So there's going to be a lot riding on how well this plays out across the league and across other leagues. Betting is becoming more of a prominent thing. Sports books, there's lots of money being hand over fist, really, at some of the bigger institutions. But for conference games, there's not going to be that, okay, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? We don't know. You're going to know what your opponent possibly could be doing 3 days out, and of course you'll get that updated report, and we'll get it as well right before the start of the game day at 10:30 a.m. So that's a big deal. We'll talk more about that with you, but I want to turn my attention to Marshall women's basketball when we continue. Juli Fulks, we're going to talk to her about the big news today that Kentucky is going to be playing the Thundering Herd this November at the Cam Henderson Center. And, of course, we'll get your text. Those are coming up, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. If you don't have a phone, say you're stuck in the hills of Beckley, you don't have a phone, but you got your laptop, you can find me on X at Paul Swann. I'll take those comments and questions as well. More coming up, including Juli Fulks, when we continue on this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Eat, drink, play, repeat. Only at Dave & Buster's. Monday, all-you-can-eat wings for just $22.99 and a $10 power card is included. Wednesdays, half-price games from open till close. Plus happy hour Monday through Friday from 4 till 7 and late-night happy hour Sunday through Thursday from 10 to close. Featuring $5 domestic drafts, wine by the glass, and select cocktails, including top-shelf Long Island iced teas. Eat, drink, play, repeat. Only at Dave & Buster's Huntington Mall. The soundtrack to your summer is back. Mountain West 9th Street Live. Downtown Huntington's favorite Friday night tradition. Presented by Michelob Ultra and White Claw. This Friday, it's the Tri-State STEM plus M night with live music from the Jason Mays Band on the Marshall OBGYN stage. Little Caesars Kids Zone is back, and Gomart Happy Hour starts at 5. Enjoy food and drinks from the Marshall Hall of Fame Cafe, Sip Downtown Brasserie, and Summit Beer Station. Bring your friends, bring the family, and soak it up before summer's officially gone. Join us Friday night, August 29th, the final 9th Street Live of the season with heavy hitters. 9th Street Live, driven by University Ford and built by Cardinal Roofing. Every Friday night through Labor Day. 9th Street in Huntington, between 3rd and 4th Avenues. Brought to you by Delta Hotels, Wendy's, Mountain Mindful, the City of Huntington, Marshall University, Blinko Glass Company, the Marshall Health Network Arena, and Kindred Communications. This Friday, the Jason Mays Band is live at Mount West 9th Street Live. Be there.
Now in stock, hard-to-get Chevrolet Traxxas, over 50 available. More coming, starting under $23,000. The Car Ferry says clear the lot, 2026 is on the way. GMC 2026 Terrains, 40 in stock, up to $1,800 off. Mark Porter Chevy GMC in Ashland, Kentucky and Pomeroy, Ohio has truck. Take up to $14,000 off. 2025 GMC Sierras. Offer includes $3,500 owner loyalty rebate. Must own 2011 or newer Buick or GMC. Come to Route 7 and Route 33, Pomeroy, Ohio, or Greenup Avenue, Ashland, Kentucky. Over 800 GM vehicles available. Car dreams do come true. Sale ends September 2nd. All rebates to dealer.
Hey Tri-State, Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. It's that time of year for March basketball. Frank's has you covered from the Sun Belt to the SEC, NBA to the MLB. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials they have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check them out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Follow at Paul Swann on X for Marshall sports updates and more.
We continue with this edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930 with the big news today that Marshall will play host to Kentucky at the Cam Henderson Center in November. And to tell us more about that is the head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team, Juli Fulks. Coach, good talking to you again, and exciting news today. Kentucky's coming to the Cam Henderson Center.
Hey, Paul. Well, thanks for having me, and we are excited. You know, obviously, anytime you can get a SEC powerhouse to come to your home venue, that's a great opportunity for us. It'll be really fun for the players. It's going to be really fun for the fans. So we actually just finalized that about 2 weeks ago. So we both needed a game late, and it worked out really well in both of our schedules. So we're excited. It's a home and home. So they're going to come here this year, and then we're going to return the favor and go back to Kentucky next year.
Is that a situation that comes about because of relationships? Of course, you know, you have been coaching in Kentucky for a long time, so I'm sure you have those relationships. Was that the case, as you had some really good relationships, you can open that dialogue, or do they approach you?
You know, we had talked to them early. It was both. You know, I know obviously a lot of coaches on staff there and a lot of connections to the Lexington area. And so we had tried early in the year to get that to work, and we just weren't able to with both of our schedules. And then as things kind of move around, as schedules get closer to finalization, we were able to open up a game, and it happened to work out when we talked to them and we reached out to them that they could do the same date, that November 15th Saturday. And it worked with all of the schedule at Marshall when we have to start thinking about what other sports are doing that weekend. So it's a perfect fit for us, and we were really excited that they were able to come over on that weekend, and it's going to be a great game.
A game like this, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of excitement. Fan interest will be high. Do you see this possibly as bringing back Jam the Cam to make this the game where you try to stuff the Cam Henderson Center and just have a great event for women's basketball that day?
Yeah, it certainly gives us a great opportunity. You know, it's with obviously, you know, we are right there on the Kentucky border, and so we have lots of fans who cheer for both teams or have some affiliation with both. And so I just think it, you know, provides more interest. I would love to see this be a game that we can continue. You know, we have obviously several schools, you know, Power 4 schools, whether West Virginia or Pitt and Kentucky, that are in close areas. And so, you know, for our fans to be able to, you know the school and have interest and you know, and sometimes different connections, I think that's just going to be really fun. And so we're going to do everything to promote that. I think football's on the road that day in the evening, and so we have a chance to do a great job with the crowd. And so we're going to do everything we can. And, you know, you always want to find a way to make it, you know, competitive. And, you know, we looked at schedules and rosters, and so we're going to do everything we can to, one, have that place rocking and be in all green, and two, make sure we're doing a good job of putting a good plan together so that our players feel like we can go out there and do everything we can to pull off, you know, a potential win.
Of course, Marshall has won big games in the past, so that would not be unheard of. A team like Kentucky comes in. You mentioned all that interest. How familiar are you with Kenny Brooks? Have you had many interactions with him? You know, first-year coach for UK. How familiar are you with him? And you know, what can you tell us? You know, early on, just kind of looking at them. I know they're going to be tough, big, powerful, strong. You can throw all the adjectives out there. But what kind of game do you expect from them, and what does that do for your program? How does it help you?
Historically, Kenny has always had really physically big teams. They have currently two different 6'5" players on their roster. Clara Stack obviously got a lot of playing time last year, and she's back. But just generally, they are really big. They have several players that are 6'1", 6'2", big guards. And, it typically is really high IQ basketball, a lot of same-side isolation. They'll get out and take advantage. But they had a big graduation with their point guard, and so they're going to be different, too, as she made them go and really push the ball. And so, I think with how we play defensively, because we can guard in the half court and that's the type of game that we can be in zone and go bigger. I mean, we're not going to be 6'5", but we can be 6'3" in a couple spots and protect the rim and be able to get out on shooters. I think those type of matchups give us a chance. And obviously, if it's in your own gym, because we shoot 33s a night, if you can get a night where you get hot, it gives opportunities, because if you can make enough threes, you can stay in anything and put pressure on them.
Juli Fulks, our guest, head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team, on the road right now, heading to the event in Charleston, Paint the Capitol Green, spending a few minutes with us beforehand. Kentucky announced as an opponent for the Thundering Herd November 15th at the Cam Henderson Center. With a game like this, you're going to get a great test. But evaluate what you've got right now. After a great run toward the end, I thought that tournament, the way it was set up, it was not set in your favor, but yet you almost made it to the championship game. How are you looking as far as this point, year two, with a lot of successful stories to point to and a lot of success really you can build off of?
Yeah, absolutely. Last year was one of those years with Ari Redmond, who was back this year. She tore her ACL in the first game, and then we had a lot of injuries early, and it felt like it just took us such a long time to find our bearing again and get rolling. And then we were able to put, I think, 9 of the last 11 we won, and really were playing real good basketball starting in February, and that carried. And I was so proud of them in the conference tournament, because we knew we were better than what the record was showing, and had so many one-possession games that we didn't make the last shot and came out on the losing side of it. So I felt great for them, because we knew we had a lot of talent and we were able to do things. But in great news, especially in this day of the transfer portal, we retained our roster. And so, if you look at the players last year outside of, obviously Aislinn, who had graduated, and Cece, who she had been there 5 years in Huntington, and so she decided she was going to go try something different for her 6th year. And obviously we wish she could have stayed. We returned everybody else. And so that was a great core. Our spring and summer workouts have been awesome. And then we were able to, we knew what pieces we needed in the portal, and we felt like we nailed it. We have a freshman, 2 juniors, and a senior, and they all bring different things. It's going to be really exciting when when the crowd gets to see our senior Tamaya. She is a phenomenal defender. She came from VCU. She had started there the last couple of years. She had a great possession in practice yesterday where she stole the ball, went and scored, came back next possession, stole the ball, and she would have scored again if we didn't blow the possession dead. And so I think we added to what we already had, and on top of it, those players have really developed in the off season and are really dedicated to understanding the things that they did well and different things that they could add to their game to make sure us as a team was better. And so school started this past Monday, so we're back at it already. So we had our 7.5 weeks in the summer. We're on it now. We'll go 5 weeks, and then September 22nd we'll start practice for real. And we have lots of big games. So before we play Kentucky a couple days earlier, we're going to Indiana. So that'll be a really fun week for our players, and several chances to go out and see where we're at compared to the national stage.
My guest is Juli Fulks, head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team. Where are you at? This is year number 2 as the head coach of the Thundering Herd. Obviously, you have a long resume of success. You've done it for many years and successfully, but as the year 2 coach of the Thundering Herd, what stayed the same for you? What changed? And maybe is there something you learned that you were able to build upon?
I think last year as the season went, we were always reflecting and adapting. And, as we enter 2 years, that's the second year. This is true about everything. What would make the recruiting better? What would make the player experience better? What makes the on-court basketball better? And so I think we take a lot of pride in constantly looking at the process we have in place. How do we get those better? And, I think it's been a really great growth step. When I look at this team, I can see how this team is going to be really successful and can have a very special year. And obviously, obviously, you always need to have a little bit of luck in terms of injuries and health and that sort of thing. But we have the pieces in place. We have the shooters. We have an ability to defend. We have difference makers on both sides of the court, which I think is going to be really impactful. And it's fun because we also have, some West Virginia players in that mix, and then several players that are all within 2 to 3 hours. And so I think when you look at the whole picture and what we're trying to accomplish, this is a year that we can really come out and make some noise and win a lot of games. And I'm excited. I can't wait for us to, really roll the ball out in 5 weeks and kind of get after it every day. But we have big goals each week before we get to that to make sure we're really able to accomplish all the goals in front of us.
Juli Fulks is with us. She is the head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team. Before we let her go, a couple more questions for her. Lots of change happening at Marshall University. We can talk about the fun stuff like the brand new court. That's always great. There's always something happening facility-wise at the Henderson Center, it feels like, which is always great as well. And then we have a new athletic director, Gerald Harrison, taking the job officially on Monday. I know it's been a whirlwind for him. What have your interactions been with him, and what kind of partner is he going to be for you?
Well, obviously, we're really excited to welcome Gerald, and I was on the search committee, so I felt like I had an inside track and, really happy to have him here and just be involved in all of the pieces behind the scenes. And so, got to go through the interview process with him, literally. And, he brings such great energy to the department. And obviously, he has only been here for a week now with us. And, he was here for all weekend. This last weekend was a really fun Marshall weekend where on Friday night, we had the return with all the athletes to Huntington at 9th Street Live, and then we did the reverse raffle, and then on Sunday night we had all of the athletes on their return to campus. So he was there for all of that, and then officially in the office Monday, and he came by our offices yesterday, so we had a chance to talk with him as a staff. And he has a plan, and I appreciate that. And as he's also learning and what makes Marshall tick and how are we going to be successful, it's great energy. So we're excited for the new times, and one of the things that you mentioned in the new times is that new court. So we think we're going to be on it next week. They were putting the rims up today. It is beautiful. So there's, this is a big recruiting time for us for the next few weeks. So we're excited to show that off on top of all the other great things at Marshall. But I think the fans are really going to love that court when they see it in person.
Before we let you go, Juli Fulks with us, head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team. Paint the Capitol green. You're about there at that event now. What does that event mean to you, and just how impressed are you with an event like that really gets Marshall out there beyond just the scope of Huntington?
Well, it's really important in a lot of ways, and obviously we have fans across this entire state and the tri-state region, but we want to be able to go down to Charleston and make sure all the fans there feel like they are supported, they are valued. And so, I got to go to this event last year and be on the panel, and I get to be on the panel again this year. And so, one, it gives us an opportunity to talk about our team and to make sure everybody understands what we're doing and how we're doing it, and putting a product on the floor at a group of talented players that they can be proud of. But it works both ways. We want to make sure that they know how much we appreciate them, and this will be a packed event at the Bill No Flying School, which obviously is a huge part of our, the new things that Brad Smith has brought to campus. And so to be able to go there, I'm sure President Smith is going to be there tonight, and obviously Coach Gibson's going to take the stage. And, one more thing that's new and exciting, and there's no better time in my mind than in the fall when school starts with athletics. Everybody is super positive. The motivation, the fandom is high. So we're excited for tonight.
Yeah, I was thinking, we've got Hoops in Huntington coming up, and that's always a fun event. I'm thinking a basketball court in one of those hangars. That might be your next event.
Yeah, I am happy to bring that idea to the table. So I think we had talked about all the different places. Now with all the new rules with the NCAA, you can do a lot of different things, and that would actually be a really exciting game. So I'll bring that to the table on your behalf, Paul.
Oh, that would be fantastic. I need all the good publicity I can get, Coach.
I can do that.
I appreciate it. Hey, thank you again for doing this. I know you're pretty busy today and you got a lot in front of you. It's exciting. Kentucky coming to Huntington, that's a big deal, and I look forward to seeing that camp really jam-packed full of Herd fans this fall.
Well, me too, and our goal is to keep putting games in front of our fans that they are going to be excited about and enjoy, but then more importantly, making sure we're always showing up and putting a lot of wins on the board that, gets everybody in the community excited as we make sure we're doing a good job with all the things that we're responsible for.
Coach, have a great night tonight, and thanks for joining us again.
Thanks, Paul. You too.
That is Juli Fulks, head coach of the Marshall women's basketball team. Kentucky Kentucky, coming to the Cam Henderson Center. That is set for November 15th, and as you heard Coach mention earlier, that's going to be a home-and-home series with Kentucky. Our text line is open, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. For those of you stuck without a phone, you can join us easily on X at Paul Swann. More coming up on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
It may be goodbye summer in Huntington, but it's hello deals here at University Ford. Broncos up to $8,000 off or finance at 0%. Escapes up to $6,000 off or just $292 a month. Explorers now up to $5,500 off. Plus 0% financing and up to 125% of KBB for your trade. New ownership, improved process, better deals. Better deals. Visit us at University Ford in Huntington or online at universityfordwv.com. See deal for complete details on all offers.
Unlock big savings on your next project when you shop at Menards. Check out Lockley Electronic Door Locks. You'll never have to worry if you forgot to lock your door again. Control your lock from anywhere with the use of your smartphone. Keep your home safe and secure. Pick up your Lockley Electronic Door Lock today. Plus, check out our weekly flyer on Menards.com for more great deals happening now.
Save big money at Menards.
Summer's winding down, your lawn's slowing up, and the leaves, they're already starting to drop. Robert's Lawn and Landscaping doesn't miss a beat. From final cuts to full fall cleanups, fresh mulch and winter prep, they've got your yard handled before the seasons change. Reliable, local, ready for what's next. Lock in your fall services now with Robert's Lawn and Landscaping. Visit robertslawn.com. Robert's Lawn and Landscaping, where every season starts strong, reliable, local, and ready for what's next.
Hear that? That's what having fewer hot flashes and night sweats can sound like. Veoza is the #1 prescribed hormone-free treatment FDA approved for moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, also known as hot flashes and night sweats, due to menopause. Veoza can cause serious side effects, including liver problems. Your doctor will do blood tests before and during treatment. Stop Veoza and call your doctor if you have symptoms of liver problems, such as feeling more tired than usual, decreased appetite, nausea, vomiting, itching, yellowing of the eyes or skin, pale stool, dark urine, or stomach pain. Don't use Veoza if you have cirrhosis, severe kidney problems, kidney failure, or take CYP1A2 inhibitors. Ask your doctor about Veoza. To learn more, call 1-866-239-1637 or go to veoza.com. That's VEOZAH.com.
Hey Tri-State, Frank's Place is where friends hang out with friends. Stop on by for happy hour from 4 to 6 p.m. and a lot of daily specials. It's that time of year for March basketball. Frank's has you covered from the Sun Belt to the SEC, NBA to the MLB. First responders, stop by Frank's Place and check out the specials they have for you. Frank's Place, located at the River Place Plaza, next to Fratelli's. Check them out on Facebook for weekly updates and specials. Frank's Place, your home away from home.
This is The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Miss an episode? Catch it anytime on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
We continue on with today's edition of The Drive on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Our text line, it's brought to you by Clark's Pump and Shop, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Texter says, Paul, during football practice today, they played the Georgia Fight song for 30 minutes straight. For context, the song is only 36 seconds. Hopefully it works and we can be ready to put up a fight. Appreciate the text. Coach mentioned that the other day, that Marshall was going to pipe in that kind of sound, pipe in all of that noise, and just keep at it. Hopefully it will work, and we're going to see how loud those speakers can really get. Now, you can't simulate actually what that atmosphere is going to be, but I would get them so sick and tired of hearing that thing. They can just tune that out when they get to the game. They get out there. They get on the field. Tune that out, because this gets going to be blaring. It's going to be blazing. It's the home opener for the Georgia Bulldogs, and Marshall is the first sacrificial lamb for the mighty Bulldogs. And Marshall can tune that out and just go play. That's going to be the big challenge, not just the on-field play, but can you calm down? Can you get the nerves settled in a little bit? If you're a Power 5 team, Power 4 team now, you don't have those nerves as much. You're NC State, like Coach Gibson used to coach at. You go into there, you're not maybe as impacted by it. If you're Marshall, well, this is probably the big, for a majority of these kids, this is probably the biggest crowd that they have played in front of. So that's a big deal. And keep that up, continue, just make them sick of that fight song until they get to game day. So that's great news to hear. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Also, another text about what's happening over at the Joan. Paul, I got to see what the shoey looks like. It looks great. I saw those pictures as well. Thank you for the text. And we've talked about this a lot, but that's coming along quite nicely now, and that's really going to fill that end zone out and just make it, look that more impressive. I know the new scoreboard, the ribbon board, that's going to look really nice there, and I like the fact that that scoreboard is taken off of the building. Sure, some of you like the block M scoreboard. I was okay with it, but that's a great look for the shoey. It feels a lot better now, not just tacked on. So we'll see what it looks like. We got several more weeks until that's supposed to be ready. It better be ready. And by the way, speaking of being ready for game day, you saw on social media the green helmets and the reveal of that. Well, the first home game for those new helmets will be the home opener. New uniforms, new helmets, everything for the Thundering Herd begins with the home opener. And so we'll see what those look like in action. It's a little thing, sure, but it's still a big deal. So Missouri State, that's when you're going to see the green helmets. Now, will you see the green helmets for Eastern Kentucky as well? Possibly, but I would definitely go with the green helmets as much as I possibly could. Or maybe you keep them back a little bit and keep it special. I don't know. You've got options now with the green, the white, and, of course, the black. Which one would you favor? 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. A couple of texts, sort of some mixed reviews from yesterday. Texter says, that was a great interview with Athletic Director Gerald Harrison. Appreciate his candor. Appreciate that text also. This is Rodney from Beckley, and he says that I asked the same questions that I asked Athletic Director Christian Spears when he was hired. Appreciate the text. I don't know if they were exactly the same, but we solicited a lot of questions from fans, so gave the fans an opportunity. A lot of questions that were on people's minds. Of course, facilities are going to be important. Philosophy, scheduling. I mean, he's, now day 4 on the job? So I don't think he was going to hit us with really any major action items on day 3. This is different than when Christian Spears was athletic director. He would come in here and just hit me with big-time items. And it was great for the show. He announced, hey, we're going to have a party deck. Yeah, we're going to take that end zone. We're going to make that a party deck. We're going to get a new scoreboard, and it's going to be the biggest scoreboard in college football. It's going to be the biggest one. And then we had to walk that back a little bit. Okay, we're doing measurements here. It's going to be pretty big, and then we get the scoreboard toward the end. And it's really nice, but it's not the biggest scoreboard in college football. And so I wasn't expecting major items to be dropped day 3 on the job for him. But I appreciate the text nonetheless. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. More coming up, including your text on this edition of The Drive, ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
It's the Hot Deals Cool Ride sales event at your hometown Chevrolet in Waverly. Right now, save big on a fresh lineup of Chevys, from fuel-saving sedans to dependable trucks and family-ready SUVs, as well as an exceptional selection of pre-owned vehicles. Looking to trade in? We're paying more than ever for quality vehicles. Need financing? We've got options that work for you. Don't miss it. Hot Deals Cool Rides happening now at your hometown Chevrolet, off Route 23 in Waverly or at yourhometowncHevy.com.
Looking for the ideal office space? Well, the Kindred Capital Building may be your solution. From a one-person office to a large staff, at the Kindred Capital Office Building, it could be the perfect fit for you. With off-street parking and all utilities included, the Kindred Capital Building is perfectly located near the courthouse in downtown Huntington at 555 Fifth Avenue. If you're an attorney, medical, or professional services provider, a perfect location. Call 523-8401 and a representative will match you to the area's premier office space. Your office space is just a phone call away.
I'm Nori, and when I was young, my mom opened our home to someone who needed a secure and safe place. She taught him what it was like to have someone care about you, having dinner at home or going out to eat together.
In West Virginia, families open their homes every year to adult family care.
Some folks need a little extra help, but everybody deserves a family.
Call the Department of Human Services and ask to speak to an adult family care home finder at 304-269-6820. Sponsored by the West Virginia Department of Human Services, the West Virginia Broadcasters Association, and this station. This project is supported by the Administration for Community Living, ACL, of the United States U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, as part of a financial assistance award totaling $1,227,345, with 100% funded by ACL HHS. The contents are those of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of, nor an endorsement by ACL HHS or the U.S. government.
Hi, I'm Elise Smith, First Lady of Marshall University and founder of the Women Warrior Summit. As a woman of Appalachia, you know how much strength it takes to shift direction, especially when you're carving a new path forward. Maybe you've been thinking about changing careers, going back to school, or even refocusing your energy on something you once loved. I'm so proud to announce that the Women Warrior Summit is back for its third year, where we'll be focusing on the power of pivoting and how to approach life's turning points with clarity, courage, and intention. We'll hear from journalist, author, and entertainer Hoda Kotb, explore Jenny Blake's coveted pivot method, and even talk about how AI can support our next steps, whatever they may be. Join us Friday, October 24th at the Marshall Health Network Arena. Visit WomenWarriorSummit.com to learn more. I hope to see you there.
Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products are compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Want a boost in and out of the bedroom? Hims has you covered. Introducing a new 2-in-1 approach to level up your game. Tadalafil for better bedroom performance and zinc for testosterone support. Put it all together and you've got what you need to turn things all the way up. Getting started is simple. Just go to hims.com/joy to start your free online visit. Through Hims, you can access ED treatments including pills, chews, and more. 100% online. No office visits, no pharmacy lines. Just fill out a simple intake form and a licensed medical provider will determine if treatment's right for you. If prescribed, it ships free and discreetly to your door. Find affordable treatment options at up to 95% less than brand names at hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy, hims.com/joy.
Hi, this is Dave Wilson, host of Metro News Talk Line, and you're listening to The Drive with Paul Swann on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Plenty of time for your text this hour, 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Welcome back to today's edition of The Drive here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. So, Paint the Capitol Green is going on at 6 o'clock tonight in Charleston. So quiet day across the herd spectrum. Things get started up again. Soccer is coming back. The men will be in action. Big weekend of soccer for the Thundering Herd, taking on George Mason and then Virginia Tech. So we're going to see if that number 2 rating is warranted for Marshall, and that is coming up later this week. We've got NFL football, actually, to start talking about as well. Steelers are taking on Carolina. That's coming up tonight, 7 o'clock. And then, of course, the Bengals are going to play host to the Colts on Saturday at 7, and the Browns will play host to the Rams Saturday as well. So there is a lot going on preseason-wise. We're getting closer to the start of NFL football, and I do want to remind you, We're going to have everything all the way to and including the Super Bowl right here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. Interesting item that came out today. SEC changing the scheduling philosophy just a little bit. It looks like the SEC is now going to play one non-conference power opponent. Also, 2 regular games. Those could be power. They don't have to be. So if you're Kurt Signetti, sorry, you can't play 3 G4. And then you're going to have 9 SEC conference games. So that's a pretty big deal because the Big Ten's been pushing for this crazy playoff system, which I don't think anyone wants other than the Big Ten. And the push is going to be 5 plus 11. That seems to make the most sense. That gives everyone the amount of games that the big conferences want at the same time. It also allows the possibility for a team like Marshall to maybe crash the dance just a little bit. But that's interesting to say the least. So the SEC's adding that 9th conference game. What's it going to look like for college football scheduling here in the near future? How many of those schools will load up on cupcakes? Let's just call it that. Because strength of schedule is going to be a big factor in everything going forward when it comes to the playoff as well. So if you're playing really good teams and you lose to a really good team, that's not going to ding you as much. Say you lose, if you're Georgia and you lose to Marshall. Now, if Marshall has a great run, wins the Sun Belt, that might not ding Georgia as much. Now, let's say, and we hope this doesn't happen, Marshall has an average season, 6-6. That might ding Georgia a little bit if Marshall loses maybe a couple of games, not so much. Marshall loses 6, but beats Georgia. Marshall has a terrible year, maybe 2 or 3 wins. Put it all in on Georgia and then just fell apart. And that's going to ding Georgia a little bit more because of the strength of schedule. But the SEC is going to 9 conference games. And so with a push for 5 plus 11, be a little bit stronger now. I think that's the only system in the current configuration that might make sense. It gives an opportunity to a team like a Marshall. Marshall wins its conference and is the highest rated group of 5 conference team out there. It's going to get a spot in the playoffs. So I think that's fair. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. How's that impact scheduling as well for schools like Marshall? What does that do for the Thundering Herd? Does that mean you're going to see less of these money games because there might not be that many of them available? Or are you going to see maybe a premium on some of these games as well? Because you got to get your power game in. If you're the SEC, you got to get your big-time opponent in. You got to have a strong strength of schedule. But then you got to look at, okay, we still got to go out there and we got to win some games here. We got to bring someone in because you're not going to necessarily have as many home games with the new configuration because you got to go out and play a power opponent. So you can do that and you can get a home and home. That's fine. But you look at Marshall's schedule. Georgia's 2025, Penn State's 2026. 2027, it kind of opens up a little bit. You don't have that power opponent there. 2028, you got Wisconsin. So you're looking for a game in 2027. You're good with the next couple of years because Georgia's your money game, your power game. 2026, Penn State's your money game, your power game. And again, this is a game you can easily get to. Wisconsin, 2028, you can get to that game. And the rest of the schedule is, well, we don't know how good Ohio is going to be in 2028 or 2027. But yeah, that's a game I would play anyway. Central Connecticut, not sure about them. Bowling Green, that game's in Huntington, so I'm not as worried about it. But yeah, will you see maybe across the board here, those games have a little bit more value if you have the major conferences maybe tightening up the schedule a little bit. Like, okay, we only have 3 to play with. One of them's got to go to a power school. So that's 10 on our schedule. Okay, so then we got to schedule a couple of more. We want to have winnable games here. Do you see the power schools maybe backing off the FBS schools a little bit more? Do you see the power schools possibly say, look, you know what? We got a FCS school here that's going to fill out a game. We'll get a home game. It'll be an easy win. Then, we can load up the rest of the way. Strength of schedule is going to matter. For a school like Alabama, Georgia, things like that, that's not necessarily going to be an issue. I mean, after all, it's Alabama. It's Georgia. But for a Marshall, hey, this is a way to remember. If you play a good non-conference schedule and if the Sun Belt strength of schedule helps you out, you might have an outside shot in this thing. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. Back to the text line. Texter says, Paul, this might be minutia, but I'd like Marshall to offer a guided stadium tour. I'd love to see a press box, how they operate the scoreboard, where they turn the lights on, etc. And I would be willing to pay for it as much as I'm sure others would. It would not bring in much money beyond a few gallons of gas for coaches' cars, but it would strengthen the bond between Marshall and the fans. Appreciate that text. That's actually not a bad idea. Have sort of that stadium tour. Yeah, that could be something you could do in the off months, maybe. Maybe that's something as an added perk, depending on what your donor level is as well. I mean, I would like that to be open to more people if that's something that the university would explore. But hey, there's nothing wrong with the guided tour. You make sure that everything's in place and it's all ready to go. It's show presentable. You take the tour, like, okay, this is what it looks like on game day. Here's the press box, and you get a kind of a view, like, here's where the media will sit. Here's where the replay officials are. Here's where Steve Cotton sits. This is where he makes the radio magic for Herd fans. That's not actually a bad idea, but what would be more interesting to a fan? Would it be checking out the shoey, checking out the coaches' offices, checking out where the team works out, checking out the locker rooms? Things like that might be really interesting, and you could probably work something like a Herd experience. I'm surprised Marshall doesn't offer like a Herd fantasy camp as well, where you get to live out your dream of playing for the Thundering Herd. You know how baseball has that all the time, and other teams for other sports do that? That could be something as well. I mean, that's pretty interesting. I like things like that. But I'll give you an idea of what it looks like in the press box. It's a nice little space, and we're a close-knit group, and we throw insults and barbs at each other all game long, depending on how long you've been there. So I don't think you would get that real experience, but that would be something that people would probably want to do, want to see, hey, I kind of want to get that tour. You would be surprised. There are a lot of people all the time trying to get a peek inside the working press area. Not as much as it used to be, because of the fact that you've got more premium spaces, you've got more opportunities there, so you don't have people coming through as much. I mean, it is a controlled working environment, but you would not really be, you would be surprised of what that area people want to come in and see. Hey, this is where you sit. Oh, this is nice, because we get a nice view of the press box. So maybe that's something that someone in Marshall could pick up on, sort of like a tour of the facility. Someone could give the history of Jones C. Edwards Stadium. You start from the shoey, you work your way over to the press box, you get the tour. Hey, this is the president's box. This is the athletic director's box. This is where the media works. Hey, this is sort of where the scoreboard, controls are. Again, the radio booth has got to be on the tour. This is where Steve Cotton sets up and does his radio broadcast. That would be interesting to somebody, I think. 304-396-TALK, 304-396-8255. If you're stuck, you don't have a cell phone, or it's a flip, and you can't make it to a texting app, you can find me on X. If you can access the web, you can access X at Paul Swann. And if you're on X, by the way, throw me a follow. I do appreciate it. We try to post show updates as much as we possibly can. And while you're there as well, we've got links. You can get the podcast anytime. If you can't listen to it live, you can always get the show later. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Tomorrow will be the first Football Friday night across the tri-state. And, of course, that means Kentucky goes first. Ashland will play host to Raceland Friday night at 7:30. That's going to be on our sister station, 97.9 The River. It means we get to start talking to some of our favorite people again, Dickie Martin among them. So the start of high school football season in the Tri-State with Kentucky starting first, and that comes up tomorrow on the Ashland Tomcats' new home, 97.9 The River. And that's going to do it for this edition. Thanks for tuning in. If you missed anything today, don't forget, hit that podcast. Available on our website or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. I'll be back with you Friday here on ESPN 94.1 and AM 930.
Broadcasting from the Dave & Buster's studios. Eat, drink, play, and watch at Dave & Buster's in the Huntington Mall. ESPN 94.1 and AM 930. WRBC, W231BS Huntington.